Just checking to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. We are live now, but that's really low resolution. There we go. That's a little better. All right. Give me just a moment. I have not live streamed in, I think it's like 2 years. So give me a second to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. And that we're good to go. All right, so I look good on YouTube. We look good on Facebook. Twitch, I don't know. All right. Never know. Twitch always confuses the crap out of me. I have not live streamed. And then let me make sure that the volume on my headphones is down, so that's not coming back. But otherwise, so give me a second to make sure everything's where it's supposed to. Turn that down so that doesn't cycle back through. Probably getting double audio. Test, all right. Test. Supposed to turn that down. All right, looks like we're in good shape. Looks like the mic is closed. All right, so today I want to talk about something fairly specific, and I'm kind of really excited about something that we are doing over here at Vertex. And let me get the circle cam going there. So we have a whole team. We've been doing a lot of education, and I've been doing a lot of studies, a lot of tests, and trying to find the best way to teach people, you know, in a way that, you know, hasn't been kind of, you know, done before to death, and that actually adds value to people's lives. And so I've come up with a process that I'm kind of really happy with. And, you know, it's been the last 2 years, you know, plus just working. Trying to figure out a way to get people, specifically creatives, to grow. And so I think my camera's rotated. Is it? There we go. I'll just sit with my head. It is slightly rotated. So leave me a comment on YouTube if you can hear this, or Facebook, so I know. There's Petar. Which account am I streaming on? This is the wrong account. That sucks. All right, we'll have to move that over. And over here on Facebook. Let me make sure. This is the wrong account. Volume is off. Hey, Lucas. Hey, Daniel. Hey, Manuel. Daniel's good. All right. So, yeah, I'm on a weird channel on YouTube, which is nuts. So I'll have to figure that one out or move this over. So why don't I hit the record button? That way I can move all of this over. There we go. Manuel, I see your comments there. Perfect. All right. Let's get to this. Sorry, that was loud. Let's talk about growth today. How do we as creatives grow? Now, I work with students a lot. That's primarily what I do. And one of the things that I have learned in this process is that growth is inevitable. Growth will happen, right? So we're not talking about necessarily how somebody grows. Humans grow. It happens. But what we're really talking about is how do you collapse this down? How do you get this done faster? At Vertex, the primary focus of my life for the past 2-3 years has been how do we take a 4-year bachelor process, push that down into the smallest group possible, and find a way to accelerate growth so that somebody goes from student to job candidate, which is about the only thing we can, you know, work towards in this industry, this competitive industry, student to job candidate as fast as possible. So I'm going to walk you through my thinking here, and it's just nice to kind of be out there talking to the community now. So as a reminder, one of the really important things that we're working on right now is one-to-one mentoring, which I have found is the most essential thing to learning. 1-to-1 to 1-to-3, that's what you kind of need. Okay, 1 to 8, 1 to 5, 1 to 10. This gets much harder to learn. And I've run classes with 100 people in them, right? So now what Vertex has done is got just some amazing mentors. Incredible people. Like you can see where they work down below their names. Really happy. I've talked to every single person here. I'm incredibly excited. They all care. They all want to see students break through and achieve something, right? So all these wonderful people are now mentoring at Vertex. And so we got to sit down and talk about, like, what is the anatomy of this? How are they going to help you? And what do you need to do to take advantage of them and grow? Okay, that's the primary thing. All right, so I see everybody here. And Petar, yeah, I'm sorry. I'll get this onto the other YouTube stream and deal with that later. You know, happens when you're trying, like, you know, first time back in 3 years. So what I want to first introduce you guys to, it's not my concept. I got it from someone who got it from someone from someone, is the skill ladder. So specifically what we do is we call this the skill ladder. You can see right down here. Okay, now a skill ladder means, you know, somebody has to work with a skill and develop competence. Then they have to kind of challenge themselves, reach the next level, and then as they reach that next level, you know, achieve certain competency and stuff, and then they move over here to kind of build that in and make it unconscious, and then they get to the next point that they need to learn, the next group of concepts that are fundamental. They need to work on that and level themselves up, right? So it goes, if we're looking here at the desktop, which, yeah, it's showing. So we're starting here, working along towards our idea, and here at this point, we're starting to notice something. And then we level up, right? Move along here to the next challenge. Notice what the challenge is, level up. Move along here, notice what the challenge is, level up, right? It's the leveling up process that we really need to start to talk about and get our heads around. So in order to kind of really get our understand this from kind of from an academic perspective, you got to know, like, the 4 different stages of mastery. So it starts out with unconscious incompetence, which just means you don't know what you don't know, right? Then eventually you have conscious, yeah, I see that incompetence, and it's like it goes into my head as something else. Conscious impotence, conscious incompetence, which means you know you don't know, right? And then there's conscious competence, which means you know this, you don't have it 100%, you're not like right there, but you know this. And then unconscious competence is when you got it. It's a part of how it goes, right? And I remember a long time ago when I was rock climbing, which was a long time ago before I had family, and they talked a lot about, I think this is how it's spelled, Engrams. Someone can correct me in the chat, maybe only one M. So Engrams is this process whereby your brain takes these complex routines and over time starts to compress them down into single units of memory. So that when you have to work really fast, you now just do it. And you don't even remember how you do it because the programming and all of the steps aren't really consciously accessible. They are now all unconscious, right? And so when you meet an artist and you're like, how do you do that stuff? And the artist looks and goes, I don't know, right? But how many artists do that to you? I don't know. Fuck. They have developed unconscious mastery, which means they've gone through all of these steps and now it's just there and they're on to this next level. So the way this works, if we come over here and we look at the screen, the first step to the whole conversation is you're moving along here and you develop conscious incompetence. Holy crap, I don't know how to do this, right? And then you're like, well, I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to take a class with Ryan and I'm going to develop conscious competence. There is about 1 million things that happen between conscious incompetence and, well, yeah, conscious incompetence and conscious competence. And that's the focus that we have today. If we can understand that, or at least understand some of the mechanics around that, what you need to do to go from conscious, incompetent. How do we say this so it's not like I'm not twisting my damn tongue around, right? Some academic somewhere was like, we're going to put as many C's as possible in this phrase. Because I love and not only C's, but O's. What? So, how do we go from knowing I don't know something to being able to do something? That's like what I've spent the majority of my career looking at and trying to develop, processes, methods, and all of that kind of stuff. How do I go from knowing I don't know it to knowing how to get it done? All right, I was just talking to Matthias, one of the students, and he's in term 3, and he was talking about how when he joined Vertex, he didn't know what UVs were, and then now Marcin Kalicki, who works at CD Projekt Red, who just finished Cyberpunk 2077, who knows his stuff, right, was talking about how well he's doing UVs and starting to talk to him on a tech artist level. So you got this guy who doesn't understand UVs, comes in and starts to learn and develop his capacity to a point where he's starting to look at it from a tech artist perspective. How do you go from not knowing, in this case, not even knowing what you don't know, to knowing how to get this stuff done? That's what happens. That's what we got to figure out. What happens in that growth, right? Because you've got this ladder that's in front of you for the rest of your life. You are always going to be moving through this. You are going to be moving along with life. Say, hey, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to go learn how to do this. And then, all right, I know how to do this. Then you're going to go through life, developing unconscious mastery, while at the same time, you're unconscious. There's lots of stuff you don't know. Right? I had one of my teachers, let me see if I can show you here, Renee Fawkes. Renee Fawkes, look her up. I remember when I first went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, she had there was a show, a faculty show, and her work, there was like 12-foot, 9-foot tall figurative paintings. And I looked at those and I was just like, I was in love, basically. Like, I would have done anything for this teacher. She was amazing and just blew my mind, right? And I went up to her and I was just like, oh my God, your work is so amazing, so beautiful. And she's a New Jersey, she's a Jersey girl, right? So she's just no nonsense, serious. And she's like, look, that's great. I appreciate that. And here, I'll draw it. I'll draw what she basically explained to me. And she says, all right, well, look, like you're down here, right? And you're looking up at me and you're saying, oh, wow, you're really awesome. And you're seeing all of this distance that you have to go. But look, I'm up here and I'm looking up here and I'm like, oh my God, I have so much further to go. And this is the ladder that we are on. Once you get to one hilltop, you're always seeing the next hilltop, right? So what we need to do is start to understand the components and the stuff that's going to help us here. It's going to help us in the leveling up. What are the things that matter? So one of the things that happens to me, and I think might be happening to you, is really important for us to understand, is that when we, and I'll draw this out a little bit more, when we come into this and we become aware that we don't know something, we have a choice. We can either choose to do things the way that we have been, which in my experience generally leads us into what I call the pit. Or we can start to look at how we need to be acting as creatives to grow. That's what I want to look at today. Okay, so we could be noticing, all right, I don't know how to do this, and then say, all right, well, I'm not going to take any classes. I'm not going to learn from anybody. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to try to figure this out myself, right? Because I need to be able to do it. It has to come from me. If it doesn't come from me, then it's not really me and I'm not really meant for it. There's a whole bunch of things that come into our heads that screw us up, right? And so we'll go and we'll say, we'll do it the way we think we need to do it. And that leads usually to some sort of pain, some sort of pit of despair, right? And we're able to get through this because we're committed to this conversation. But there's a really important problem that comes up as we come through and we do this, right? So we come down into our pit, into this pain and all these problems of, oh, I just don't understand this. I'm frustrated. I've been here before. I don't know what I do. And the big problem that I've noticed in my own life is that when we get into this situation, we get into these problems, we can drop into an infinity loop of pain, in my opinion. We could just drop into this point in which we say, all right, I'm not able to do this, right? And I've done this, right? I'm not able to do this. I'm not able to be a creative. I'm not able to do this. You know what? I'm just gonna go back to my day job. And we go back to our day job and we're like, this is good. I feel comfortable. I'm okay. And then, the frustrations start to mount and things start to happen. And we're just like, this is so hard. And then eventually at some point we go, okay, that's it. I'm done with my day job. I need something more in my life. I need something out of life. This is just killing me. So you're like, all right, that's it. I'm going back to this. I'm going to head over here. And then you come over into your dream job work and you're just practicing and you're doing all this stuff and you're like, oh my God, I suck. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't figure this out. And then you come over and you're like, oh, fuck it. I got to go do my work. I gotta pay the bills. I gotta provide for myself. And you come back into the day job and you end up going from day job to dream job, day job to dream job, back and forth, back and forth. Does that happen to you? I've talked to a lot of people about this. It's something I've talked a lot about as I've been going through training and working on content to help people train. Has that been something? I don't even know where I am anymore. That you've experienced? Let me know in the comments. I'm looking at the comments right here. This is happening because of very specific problem. And it's a problem that we can solve. But you can't solve it by doing things the way you've always been doing it. There's a great saying: if you want something you don't have, you have to be willing to do something you haven't done. Right now, you have the exact life you built. Nobody else built it. You have the exact life you have spent your entire life building. Everything that's happening, for the most part, barring some crazy accidents and, a bunch of other stuff, for the most part, everything that's going on in your life right now is by your design. If you want something different, you got to be willing to do something that you haven't done before. To be somebody, to have a different way of approaching things. Checking out the comments here. Petar is saying, I know a close friend that had this happen. He's in my class when I studied and kind of put it off for a while, but now he's come back to it again. Now, at Vertex, we're an alt school. We don't do things the way people traditionally do it. So most people will go through traditional school, something will happen, and then they come to us. And so this is a really important point for me because I need to break this cycle. It's one of the most important things that I have to do when you come into Vertex is break this cycle of you keep doing the things that you've been doing and then cycling back and forth, right? So the solution is doing something you haven't done before. You have to start to learn how to act like a creative. Okay, but what does that mean? What does it mean to act like a creative? What are the rules for being a creative? What are the rules for being somebody who produces, who makes stuff that doesn't exist, right? That's never existed before. How do I do it? What are the steps? There's a million different parts to this that I think are really kind of important for us to kind of figure out. So today what I've done is kind of put down a couple of rules that I think are important for creatives in today's world. And a lot of it comes down to, what are you prioritizing? What are the things that you think are important right now, right? So for me, the rules of acting like a creative Seeing if I get a note there. The rules for acting like a creative are making sure that you prioritize action over thinking. Okay, this is a really important point, right? Because right off the bat, when we get students that come into Vertex, we always ask people what's their North Star. And we get a lot of people that say, I just want a job, or, I'm just here to learn, or something like that, right? And these are all big red flags for us because you don't have time for that. You need to know what you're doing. And so if you're just thinking, that's another way of saying not serious, not committed. Could be not committed because you're afraid. Could be that you're not committed because you don't care. And then if you don't care, why are you here? You got to care, and in creative industries, they do not suffer from a lack of labor. There's no labor shortage. In programming, labor shortage. In creative endeavors, no labor shortage. A lot of people applying. There's a talent shortage, quote unquote talent. That's the shortage that exists. That's what you have to be mindful of, right? So you need to want this. And you need to be focused on acting and doing things and not thinking. You need to be focused on real projects and not studies. So are you somebody who just kind of sketches ideas out but never finishes? All right, that's a big one, right? How many people here sketch out and don't finish? Tell me in the comments. And you need to be thinking about deadlines over comfort. So if you're thinking about that movie at night, you got to be thinking, give yourself deadlines. Time matters. You got to be thinking about failure over the fear of failure. Spend our lives avoiding failure, and you cannot do that as a creative, because what happens is you build all this, you spend all this time building skills that by the time you have built those skills, they're no longer relevant. They're just not part of the conversation anymore. You need to now reskill yourself. And especially in the industries I like to work in, where the half-life of a skill is 2-3 years, something like that. Half-life of skills in game arts, about 3 years. Pretty intense. So you need to be leveling up. You need to be skilling, reskilling. You need to be working at the edge of your ability, which really means you need to be failing much more than you are. And embrace that failure. Own it, accept it, right? You also, and this is something I'll talk about in another video, it's become really important to me. You also have to be able to separate facts from feelings. Facts from feelings, right? He's a jerk, he doesn't care about the work I did and, all of this stuff, these emotional things that we have. Well, is it true? Is that true? Is it a fact that he doesn't care and that, this person's a jerk and all these things? It could be a fact. It could also just be feelings. And as we go through and we work and we have all of these doubts inside of our minds, right? I can't do this. I'm not good enough. Is that true? Is it true that you're not good enough? Is that an actual fact? If you're like me, you know plenty of people who are less talented than you, who are more successful than you. And that's no bad note, for any individual I'm thinking of. That's a good note. It means that they didn't get tripped up on all the intellectual crap I might have. And they just went out and they did the work. And that's what we're really getting to here. Prioritizing the work over the worries. Stop worrying about the future. Stop worrying about what you should have. So are you somebody who sits down and says, hey, I have to master, let's talk game arts. I have to master substance designer. I need to master anatomy. I need to master all these things before you go out there and actually start, applying for work. Well, George is going to go over there and apply for the job, and he's just going to get into some entry-level job while you're over there worried. He's going to start building a career. He's going to be in management by the time you're done with your worries, because you'd had to reskill multiple times. Stop waiting. acting like a creative really means, in my view, it really means getting out there and acting, taking action, making something happen. We don't just work inside our heads. We're also building stuff, if that makes sense. You're making something. You improve as you make stuff, and you're judged by what you make. So get out there and make stuff. In fact, I love this quote from, here, let me show it. Let me go to, I think it's on the homepage. Andrew, I'm sorry, we haven't got, I didn't know if you wanted this video used if you're watching this. I don't know if you wanted that image used, but I thought it was about the most badass thing I'd seen. So I love this part right here where Andrew says, you know, if I was going to give advice to an aspiring artist, I would just tell them they need to be prolific, right? Don't be afraid to make bad art. Go out there and make art. Make it, lots of it, all the time. Just be there, moving forward and taking action. That's what's really important in this conversation, right? Because if we look at the source of our ability, it comes from this. This diagram, I think, pretty much well sums it up, right? Most of us focus here on what we are able to comfortably do, what we call ability. Your ability is what you're able to do, and you can bill it out, and everybody's like, okay, I know I can get this done, okay? That's good, that's fine, you know, it's a nice safe area. But everybody here knows they're capable of much more, right? You can push that. If you're gonna do 10 burpees, you're probably capable of 15, okay? What is your maybe you're capable of 20. What's your real point? When does it actually stop and you cannot do anything else? You can't find any other way to move, and you know, that's it. You're just exhausted and you're done. I'll guarantee you it's not where you think it is. And I'll guarantee you, and I've seen it myself, I've seen student after student after student just level up when they pushed themselves beyond where they thought they could be. I'm not interested in where somebody, you know, thinks they can be. That's not relevant to me. What's relevant to me is where you end up, right? And that comes, a lot of that, in my view, comes from understanding this one truth of a creative's life, which is that the work we do, the daily work we do, that's the fertile ground that makes everything possible. The work we do every day is what makes our capacity. It's what defines our capacity, is a better way to say that. Our capacity then defines our ability. Okay? It's just the comfort zone of our capacity. The daily work, that's what's important. What are we doing on a daily basis? How are we embracing failure? Are you trying to be an environment artist and all you're doing is props? Are you trying to be a UX designer and you're just doing graphic design? Or are you building projects that connect with people? If you're going to be an environment artist, maybe you're just creating, like, you know, a scene, but have you dropped into it? Have you put effects into it? Have you given it kind of, you know, wind and all these different aspects to it? Have you started to create procedural aspects? Have you explored tech art, right? There's a lot that goes into this conversation. Have you started to tell your own story? What is it that you need to do, you know, to help yourself grow? Work. You really just got to get in and build work. But there's a couple of things that are relevant here, I think, in terms of work. And let me check the comments here real quick. TC, that's you. It's you only as long as you want it to be you, my friend. Patar, I've been going through this lately in your head. Yes. Okay. Got it over here in Facebook. Daniel, my job switches between day and dream depending on what I got to work on. That's good. That's good. That is not a bad place to be. Okay, let's put that back out there. Okay. And and there we go. All right, so when we're working, we bring an approach to work, right? And so when my students work, they bring an approach to work. And I want to know, and I want them to know what good work is. And it's not always what you think, Like, I had a friend who came and stayed with me for a while, and he would sculpt and then go sit on his butt and watch TV, and then go sculpt and sit on his butt. And I thought he was the laziest bastard ever, right? Just blew my mind. And I was like, I barely took a pee break, and I barely drank water. I just went and worked my butt off on my projects, and his were better, Because he knew how to balance pain and pleasure. I only knew pain. I only knew how to push myself. I didn't know how to rest and energize myself and flow, right? I only knew how to push. And that's something that you've got to look at. You got to be thinking, like, how do I manage this process? The emotions of it as well, right? Do you finish projects? I remember one student in particular went through a boot camp, and then I held a kind of a seminar, not something like that. But basically, once you come in, it's like you never leave my place. Like, once you're in, I'm always open. I'm ready to help, and we do weekly job check-ins at Vertex on the Discord, job readiness check-ins, and we just started those up again. So, I'm always trying to help people. And I remember one of my students came in, and she had this new model, and I'm looking at this model, and I'm like, this model is at the exact same place that the previous model was at, that she was working on. And I was like, have you finished the other model? And she says, no, I started this one. And so I started kind of thinking and talking to her about this. When you don't finish a project, what does that say about you? What does that say about you as, a person? What does that say about you and, your trustworthiness, your reliability? Can I depend on you as a friend if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it? After a while, and don't take too many times, I'm not going to depend on you as a friend. You screwed me way too many times. You're not following through. You're not completing the work you said you would complete. And in an interpersonal relationship, we get it. But what we often miss is that you're in an interpersonal relationship with yourself. So if you don't finish projects, what do you think about yourself? Do you think you are a dependable person? Who here, leave a comment, watching it now live, watching it later, who here feels like, maybe they just go from project to project? It's okay, admit it. We all have that problem at some point. But you need to sit down and think about what that really says about you. And if that's what you want it to say, if that's what you want to be said about you. I would rather other people not trust me than to not trust myself. That's rough. And you know the truth about yourself, right? So if you're not finishing projects, you don't have that integrity with yourself, that's a problem. And that's going to carry forward. That's going to be a problem in your relationship. And you got to think that through. The other thing that's important about our work values is do you do deep work? Or do you just play, right? Google deep work, you'll see. It's great. I love what that author has done on these concepts. I think the book is Talent Code that I was reading. Daniel Coyle, if I remember right. Beautiful, beautiful book. Amazing information. And deep work is something that you need to really start to understand because it's what's essential for mastery. It's the process of mastery. If you're just playing, whatever. I might as well go do some sketches, might as well play. Like, okay, where is this all going? I don't know how to help. But if you get in and you start thinking deep work, that's where people can help you. That's where people like the mentors, and it's what's so key about Vertex. That's when we can start to make a difference, is when you focus, right? Like I had one of my students who needed to really understand sculpting. He'd gotten farther in the program but not been able to sculpt, because sculpting to me it's not as important as it was 10 years ago. The work profile's diminished for ZBrush, or at least it had. I think it's coming back. But so he'd gotten far, but I was like, this is something we have to address. You have to improve your sculpting. And I had been talking about sculpting, and but it was only on this intellectual level. It was like, well, a little bit here, a little bit there. And it took this student one day to just be like, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm on this 2 weeks. I'm not getting any better. Because he's just playing around with ideas. This might be what George Bridgman thinks, this might be that. And then now he sits down and he looks at the work and he goes for 6 hours and just puts his head into the work and gets into the deep practice of it. And in 20 days, he was unrecognizable. His work was very different than it was at the start. He had 20 days before where there wasn't a lot of improvement, and in 20 days, improvement happened. Did it happen because, magic fairy dust landed on him? No. That's not at all what happened. What happened is he did the deep work. He did the focused work, paying attention to every single step. I tell students all the time, mastery is not magic. It's process. The reason why that work looks so beautiful and they look like they're just like it's magic the way they did it is because they know all these processes you don't, and that they have mastered those processes. If I sit down and I sculpt the face in 5 minutes. It takes me 5 minutes. Not long, right? But I know every single step. And I'm good at every single step. Every single step. I don't miss. I'm not trying to be egotistical because I'm missing a lot of areas, so we can talk about those if you want. But when you talk about a face, I don't miss because I know every step. And I've done the deep work in every one of them. Are you playing? Are you doing the deep work that matters? I don't know. That's what you got to sit down, you got to start to think about, right? That's the work. Then the other thing is do you stand up for yourself? Do you stand up or I guess do you beat yourself down, right? So do you stand up for yourself? Do you beat yourself down? What is it that you do? Because you're the only person who's going to protect you. Mentors and me and others, we can all say you're good, we can all say this, but you're alone at 3 a.m. and you're going to make the choice to be standing up for yourself or, allow yourself to be beaten down. Not trust yourself, right? These are all really important work values for a creative, I feel. At some point, I want to kind of codify this more into the rules of life, for a creative. And we'll skip this part. And so for me, you have to remember that it's the work that matters. I remember, I'm an intellectual kind of guy. I like to think, and I like to write, and I like a lot of philosophy, right? But one of my coaches said once, clarity of action trumps clarity of purpose. Knowing why you're going to do something is not as important as knowing what you're going to do. Now, of course, I know there's Simon Sinek, there's the power of why. I get it, love it. But when you're a creative, the why isn't enough. Hey, I'm going to create this beautiful VR experience and everybody's going to come in and they're going to love it because we're going to fuse, this type with that type, and we're going to bring film into it, and we're going to, give them, and you can have all these ideas. But it's the execution for a creative that matters. It's the work that matters. The work is that fertile ground that provides our capacity, that determines our capacity, which determines our ability. If we want more ability, we need to build our capacity, which means we need to build our workload. We got to be doing more work. So the question that we have is, what's the work you're going to do? Every day, what's the work you're going to do? How are you going to make progress today? That's what we have to figure out, right? You have to figure out. And it's tough because not a lot of people can tell you. You know, like I built a school and I work with mentors who I feel can tell you. I did that because like I tell people, all the time, I didn't come from much, right? At all. My family started wealthy on my mom's side. Then they went full on Dallas, like just horrible people. I was poor as a kid. I lived and my family didn't do bad. They just made bad decisions, which is even worse. Because they could pass those bad decisions on to their kids and to me. And they did to some extent, right? And, I lived in a trailer park in Alaska, which is already it's already a difficult place. And then I'm in a trailer park, which is like, I don't know how much insulation these trailer parks have, but you're out there and the weather wants to kill you. The animals want to kill you. Everything wants to kill you in Alaska. It's rough. And, I remember delivering pizza in Lawrence, Kansas, to frat houses, to absolute jackasses, just like scum of the earth people. I'm not saying that because, I watched some, I'm saying that because they were fucking mean people to me. Like they were I had never been treated so bad. Do not deliver pizza in a college town. Not a good time had by all. I didn't come from a lot. And it took me a really long time, and it still takes me time, to learn how to approach life and how to do things to get what I want out of my life and, for my family. And I want to help you guys get there, right? That's a big part of what's important to me, is helping everybody level up, who don't maybe have the guidance that I ultimately got. Took me a long time, But the question still stands. If we remember that it's important as a creative to focus on action over thinking. Action, right? Because you have to do the work. The work leads to the capacity. The capacity leads to the ability. The ability is what you're comfortable billing for. That's the trade that you're selling. Okay, I'll do this for you, I'll do that for you, that's that. You don't want to do that with your capacity. That's a stressful life, right? Very stressful. You want to sell your ability. But your ability can't be this little tiny thing. Like, I can only do X. You want to be strong, powerful, creative with all of this ability, which means you have to have all of this capacity, which means you'll have had to do all of this work. All of this massive amount of work. So I got a question for you again. Same question. What are you going to do today? Today is the only day that matters. Today my decision was to come in and it says it's 76 degrees and sunny. I don't know. That's crazy. But today my decision was to come in and talk to you guys. Like, that was the work that mattered. Help get the word out about what we're doing and our philosophy and what's important to us. What are you going to do? All right. That's the question that's in front of you. Leave me a comment down below and tell me what you are committing to doing. All right. I'm going to go live a few more times this week. And if this works the way I want, make this more of a regular thing. And see if I can't be talking to you guys more. So right now, only thing I want to know from you, if you got something out of this lecture, out of this conversation, tell me, what is the one thing that you are willing to commit to doing? And leave that in the comments so that it's there as a stamp, a commitment, so that you can look at this tomorrow and you can say, I lived in integrity and I did it, or I did not live in integrity and I need to be better. Those are the two choices. You can't do both. You're either living in integrity with yourself as a creative and doing the work, or you are not and you're lying to yourself. You could be biting off too much. There's a lot of things that lead to this other way. You could be thinking you could not know how to organize it. Like, there's a lot of stuff. I get it. But if every day you ask yourself, what am I going to do today? And every day try to do it, you'll eventually get better at actually achieving stuff, right? Because that's one of the things we have to do as creatives. Like, a lot of times nobody tells creatives this. There's no achievement for creatives. It's like, oh, you're a creative? That means you're like the weirdo. You're the one that didn't fit in. So, go off and do your thing. But I know creatives. I am a creative. And creatives, to me, are the hardest working people out there. Everybody else just, like, sold out. That's a little hardcore, but, I'm a creative. I've had to listen to people, complain about my choice and the stuff and tell me I'm not going to make much of much, right? So they can all bite me. At this point, creatives and the people I work with, we're all hard-ass working people. Because if you're not hard-ass working, you don't achieve. You don't grow. It's not magic, right? There's no magic to this. If there is, please tell me and please help me. Train me. I want to know. I need that magic. For me, hard work. But you got to learn how to do the work. And part of that means committing daily. We talk about the anatomy of growth. The anatomy of growth comes from the work you do every single day and how good you are at achieving that work. If it's confusing and you're not sure where to go, that means you're not very good at achieving that work. That's just a fact. It's not a feeling. There's no emotion to it. Get better at it, which means choose a smaller topic. Break it down. Choose a smaller thing. Okay? You come in, maybe you're trying to hit home runs. Every time you decide what you're going to do, you're like, I'm going to create a game. Well, there are some companies that spend $300 million and hire thousands of people to create games, but you're right. You're going to do it. All by yourself. In a week. Because you're magical. The only thing magical about that is the magical thinking. Because there ain't no magic. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Let's look at some comments. Marco, just work on your stuff when you find time. I'm streaming making of almost every day until recent for 5 years. Awesome. 2 days, 2 hours a day. Stick with projects for a few years. Find your routine. And every day is key for me. Uh-oh, my cat's come. She's militant about attention. She'll start tearing stuff up. Currently committed to getting better sleep. Broke that a bit, but had to tune into this. Making my own movies and games, Marco. Step by step. Committed to doing it instead of thinking about it. What is it? Qatar, what is it? Be specific. Phil, I'm committed to hustling every day to move the needle on my music synthesizer business and my graphic novel. Now, this is important because when you commit to doing work, there's a couple of rules. You know, I've learned these from some great people. Be specific. Be achievable in a few days. Could you hustle on your synthesizer business and your graphic novel in a few days? Like, there's nothing specific. So what you want, and you may just not want to write it, but what you want to be thinking about in your head and you want to be writing down on paper, what is it? I need to complete 1 page in my graphic novel, right? You know this. I need to, what's the needle? Music synthesizer business. Is it e-learning, or are you doing composing for film, games, and stuff like that? Or maybe, you know, for art list or something like that. Make it achievable. Specific and achievable. Those are key. If they're not specific, it's not achievable, you're not going to live in integrity with yourself. And it's because you're shooting yourself in the foot to begin with. Now, Teak, the beard will be back like next week. The beard comes all by itself. This is like a day. This is a day after shaving. All right, team. Have an amazing week. Where are we at right now? Tuesday. Done. Phil. Love it. Build synth box for sale. Complete the 3 on your workbench by Monday. Deal. That's what it takes. That kind of commitment. Mark, are you teaching how to make money from art? Right. What we do at Vertex is it's focused a lot around production jobs. When you start talking about like NFTs and how to make money from your art and all of that kind of stuff, I don't know, man, that world changes so fast. I am interested in it and diving into it, but production and what's happening right now with that stuff is like, that's got my focus. What's happening with Unreal, how game artists kind of take those careers, that stuff's kind of crazy. That stuff's like, I'm just super excited about that. All right, guys, have an amazing week and stay tuned for more. Talk to you later.